It's been a tough couple of years, honestly. It really has. You know, we didn't know nearly as much as we did about concussions, first of all. And I thought a concussion was something that knocked you out, had you throwing up, and so I guessed I'd had 6. And then we come to find out that it's not just the major blows, it's those cumulative blows, including body blows. Who would have known? Like, who would have ever guessed that a backdrop on the floor? Can you imagine, a neurologist, orthopedic guy looking at a backdrop on a concrete floor in slow motion, what that does to your body? And you think about, I remember wrestling you at house shows, backdropping you, number one guy in the business, and you're taking backdrops in the concrete at house shows because you were doing what you thought you had to do to pop that crowd. In retrospect, maybe some of those decisions weren't that sound, especially post 2004.
Is that when it started catching up to you?
Well, 99, I remember Hunter actually saying to me, like, people say, hey, Mick Foley must be, like, falling apart. And Hunter was like, no, he's actually moving around pretty good. That was, like, 98.
Yeah.
Within about a year. I mean, I was like a different human being. Everything hurt. Like, it caught up. Mother Nature and Father Time kicked my ass in a hurry.
Mother Nature, Father Time.
Ah, brother.
But you didn't have any major surgeries yet. Did you have anything replaced or fixed?
You know what? Here's part of the problem. I went to the neurologist gave me the 2 of them, Ixnay. It's kind of, this is something I'm proud of. I want it on my epitaph. When Dr. Cantu from the Boston Center for Traumatic Encephalopathy told me in no uncertain terms that I could never go in the ring again. I looked at one of the top neurologists right in the eye and I said, I can work an entire match around my left knee. That's a great wrestler line, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can work an entire match around my left knee. And he just looked at me and said, Mr. Foley, when you were in my office 2 weeks earlier, you struck me as a bright young man. He said, I've been doing a little reading. He said, you got a lot going on. He goes, if you think you can find another neurologist to clear you, that's up to you. But I'm telling you, as a neurologist, you should never be in the ring again. And it was like an enormous weight was off my shoulders.
Someone gives you a reason to walk away?
The ball was taken out of my court. It's almost like a boxing match where the guy throws in the white, the white towel.
They did it for you.
Yeah. And I had that talk with Edge like 6 weeks later. I was driving through, the mountains of North Carolina. Gave him a call, and he was like at total peace with that decision because he realized coming back means risking paralysis. It's not a matter of guts. You can't do it. And I think guys like us, you need that guy telling you can't do it because otherwise you will be sitting there. And I probably could have had a good match with Dean Ambrose.
Right.
I mean, I was even going to call Undertaker and say, can I please, for one match, can I come up through the ring?
Right.
I had everything lined up, and I thought we had a heck of a match. So it was easier for me to have the ball taken out of my hands and kind of walk over to that bench and sit down.
When I was in Seattle, Wrestlemania 19, man, I was drinking a little bit, living too fast. I went to the hospital that night, ambulance. Heart was going crazy, drinking too many speed stacks and all that other bullshit. And they put 4 liters of fluid in me. I was dehydrated. Didn't really give me the clearance to wrestle the next day.
Yeah.
But I was going to because it was WrestleMania 19, and I knew I had to hang them up. And so I had to go to work because that's what we do. So I went to work. I remember showing up down there, and, man, Jason, the guy who works at WWF, had the place lit up. It was a beautiful building there in that arena there. KD and all the gang was there. JR rode with me. I was in a real, man, someone even looked at me wrong or talked to me. I damn near want to start crying because it's my last match.
Yeah,
we didn't get a chance to tell everybody because I needed to ride off in the sunset because my guy said, hey, dude, you need to get out of Dodge and you need to do it now. So, went and did it. But I remember Rock hit me with 3 rock bottoms. On that last one, I laid there at 1, 2, 3. And, man, the feeling, it was just like what you said. A weight was lifted off my back because I didn't have to go out there and put anything on the line anymore. And don't get me wrong, I would have kept doing it, but someone took the ball out of my hand. So I felt that relief.
Yeah.
And it was, Steve, it's okay to go now because the doctor said, hey, you need to get your ass out of here. So I felt relieved. Now when I look back, I'm, 12, 13 years removed. And I think if I never would have had the neck issues, I probably could have made at least another good 5, 6. That was a pretty physical bumper. But now when I look back, I think had I stayed in the business, because I feel pretty decent right now, but there's days I feel like shit. I think I would feel more like shit had I got that extra 5 or 6. So I'm probably cool because I got all the business out of my system.
Yeah.
With riding off to the sunset when I did.
I had the sunset exit in 2000. And I had the sunset exit in 2004. And I had it in 2006. It was just, I couldn't, it was like, who knew the economy was going to fall apart? Like, wait a second. So not only is the money I saved, like, not going to, it's losing money, and there was this sense that I'd just written a second novel, which the world did not exactly, line up to buy. And I was like, I can make as much money for a comeback match with Carlito. Like, there was still a market for a Mick Foley match, and like, even if it wasn't a main event match, there was still something there. And I kept going to that well. And, man, if I could have, taken an eraser and rewritten history, anything post 2006 would have been off the record for sure.
So what about all this stuff with Christopher Nowinski, the Brain Institute, whatever it's called? I say that with respect. I just don't know what it's called.
Boston Center for Traumatic Encephalopathy.
Have you been?
If I can continue to say it correctly, I know.
You still got it.
A couple times. And I want to do next year's show. I want to deal with some of the head trauma. And I've dabbled in it a little bit where I've said, as long as I continue to say the words Boston Center for Traumatic Encephalopathy, I know I'm okay. And a couple minutes later, I'll come back to the Boston Center for Traumatic Encephalopathy, and I'll start coming up with different ways to screw up the name.
Right.
And it's an uncomfortable laughter because not everybody understands that I'm messing it up on purpose. And it's kind of like a clever thing where you're getting the laughs from a few people, but it's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be laughing at this guy's expense.
Right.
And that's one of the things I'm looking for is like, if I do want to make a serious statement in my show, how do I do it? And I've talked to Brendan Burns, who's a brilliant comic from Australia and knows the wrestling business, has a real good feel for the wrestling business. If it wasn't for the fact that Vince would personally hate him and have him thrown out by the end of the first day, he'd been an outstanding asset to the writing team. And I asked him about that, and he's like, mate, you're going to get that series, you got to have a killer Final 15. It reminds me so much of, like, coming up with a match for a pay-per-view, like you get your sections, you got your moves. Especially for me, I had a limited set of moves, and I had to keep thinking of different ways to combine them, throw them in, different ways of making the matches exciting. And when it clicks, the same way that, the match would come together and click and you'd have that vision in your head, it's the same feeling of fulfillment. I'm not there yet. I don't know how to do next year's show yet. I'm having fun.
So how's the gray matter inside your cranium? You good? You fucked up?
Well, it's going to be a waiting game. I'm donating.
I have little memory lapses here and there now. Sometimes I can't, I always joke to my damn wife. I say, hell, man, sometimes, Kristen, the faster I cross the room, the sooner I forget why I crossed it. So, yeah, I'll have a fleeting moment like that, but I can't say that that's because I got hit with a bunch of steel chairs because I was a hands-up guy. Probably had, 2 to 3 concussions due to activity in the ring, just to a bump gone wrong.
Yeah.
So I can't chalk it myself up. And I got lit up playing football now, here or there a few times.
When they asked me how many times you've seen stars, that's another. I was like, what? What do you mean? Like, hundreds? Like you're telling me? And
Brother, you don't see stars, you see constellations.
I used to wrestle Undertaker, and then I'd charge him in that corner. He'd bring up the boot, and I'd have the chair in my hands. Yeah. And the percentage of people who would have known the difference between real contact and some space would be so minimal. But to me, if I didn't feel those stars, I wasn't doing it right.
Right.
Going back in time, I would have had that hand. What would it have hurt?
Right.
To put not only the hand up between my chair and and that boot, but to put that chair up put that hand up when those chairs were traveling at high speed.